Forrest Gump is a movie I honestly like. It's good, it's not very good or bad. I like it, but no way did it deserve the title of Best Picture when there were much better films that year, such as Shawshank Redemption, The Lion King, and Pulp Fiction. I was a little skeptical when hearing that there was going to be a Hindi remake of this film, because frankly, I am too tired of Hindi remakes, well, most of them. But knowing that Amir was behind the project, I had faith in it. There was a lot riding on this film, not just because this is the remake of a universally beloved Oscar winning classic, but also the fact that this is Amir Khan's return to the silver screen after 4 years. With solid films like PK, Dangal, and Secret Superstar, the actor disappeared after his critically and commercially panned film Thugs of Hindustan. And so now his return to the screen after so many years during COVID and with the current state of Hindi movies at the box office was a big risk, and it unfortunately flopped. Mainly due to another reason which I will get into later. I say unfortunately because after having seen it, I can say that I really liked the film. So let's talk about the film itself. The movie begins with an extremely well executed one take shot of a leaf making its way through the railway station onto Lal's feet, where he begins to narrate his life story to a stranger he met in the train. The feather is essentially a character here, going through its own journey from the sky to the railway station, and it finally landing at Lal's feet. As Lal narrates his childhood, there is this glowy feel to it where the sun shines brighter than ever, giving it a sense of longing nostalgia where we get to see Lal's innocence and how it continued to remain throughout his entire life. This innocence is followed by Lal's first and last love, Rupa, who he falls for mainly because of how kind she is to him and how she treats him with such respect, unlike everyone else because Lal is different from the rest. Even his mother, played to perfection by Mona Singh, who perfectly captures the love and care a mother has for her son, instills these values in Lal. And we see how much of an effect she has had on him as he keeps on referring to things that she had told him. I grew to care about Lal and his friendship with Rupa as it contained all these little cute moments of young, sweet love, but there was a darker undertone to it. Lal would witness several atrocities but would never realize the severity of these events. His mother would protect him from the aftermath of the assassination of Indira Gandhi. Lal was stripped from his identity as a Sikh, but he didn't know how serious this was. Even when Rupa faced a traumatic childhood, Lal would worry because she was worried. He couldn't fathom the abusive nature of Rupa's father or how broken she was upon her mother's death. He was just happy that she was living with his family now. Rupa's family was poor, and her father killed her mother over the lack of financial stability in their house. This trauma went on to shape her life and made her adamant to get rich. Her goal became all about achieving wealth, and this is what leads to her downfall. Kareena Kapoor plays the part of Rupa outstandingly. It feels so good to see her back on the big screen after so many years with a terrific performance, showing how a small town girl gets in with the wrong people with the hopes of getting rich, of becoming a big actress, because at that time the underworld was supposedly influential in the making of films in Bollywood, and her reasoning tied with her generational trauma gives her character more depth. She's flawed, she makes bad decisions, but we know where she's coming from and root for her. In a scene where she breaks a fight between Lal's maid and her husband and begins to break down, just shows how deeply her past has affected her. Now, similar to Forrest Gump, Lal is part of several historic events of the country, but since this is a Hindi adaptation, the events are changed to specific Indian sensibilities. For example, some of them would be Lal meeting a de-aged Shah Rukh Khan before he became a big star, the famous 83 World Cup victory, the origin of Rupa underwear, the 2008 Mumbai attacks, and being a part of the Kargil war, where he meets his new friend Bala, who we also grew to care about since he's pretty similar to Lal. There is an ongoing gag in the film where Lal narrates about his ancestors dying in many well known wars, and it's basically Amir playing his different ancestors dying in comedic ways. This hilarious gag is continued as the same happens with Bala and his ancestors. The way Lal looks at the world is also hysterical, and his simple minded thought process is what accounts for most of the comedic bits in the movie. The songs too are excellent. The beautiful song Kahani is a great way to start and end the film, giving it the sense of a true end of a story of a noteworthy life. And my favorite is Turkalea, where we follow Laal's journey of running across the country and celebrating its inherent beauty, complemented by the lyrics that give us insight into how Laal is feeling at that particular moment. And what adds to the sense of Lal's innocence is how the tune of the songs are somewhat reminiscent of a nursery rhyme. But the film pretty much follows the beats of Forrest Gump, unsurprisingly, but in its own unique flavor. I was heavily invested in their love story, or rather, one sided love story between Lal and Rupa. He has loved her since they were kids, and he never really grew out of it. He would often ask her whether she would marry him, but she'd never answer. She loves him too, but not the way he does, and it's honestly something I can get behind. I felt for Lal and his heartbreak expressed through Amir's expressive eyes. He'd always been there for her and loved her unconditionally, no matter how upset he'd be that she would never feel the same. Now, Amir's performance is earnest and empathetic, but I will say that it felt a little too animated for my liking. It's very reminiscent of PK, as has been pointed out by literally everyone at this point, but the younger Lal still had a much more reserved and quiet incomprehension of the world. And I know that he's grown older when played by Amir, but the whole point of his character is to show that he hasn't really matured. But there is a scene which I could consider my favorite, and it's in the third act when Lal decides to wear his turban. Since this is an important moment, the filmmaking takes its time. The scene is patient as Lal slowly puts on the pagadi, embracing his Sikh identity once again, but this time on his own. It's a beautiful scene, and it's also a payoff to a moment when Lal saw another Sikh wearing his pagadi during his time in the Kargil War. Lal's innocence also proves to reward him. When he was saving the lives of many injured soldiers in the Kargil war, he ended up saving the Pakistani general Muhammad's life as well. He did not understand the concept of taking sides in the war since he had just been doing what he was ordered to do. He didn't even realize that he was saving an enemy. Despite Muhammad repeatedly mocking and cursing Lal for his lack of intelligence, eventually he was moved by his unrelenting kindness. Now, it is pretty unbelievable how an unidentified Pakistani soldier is living in India with no problems at all, and I'm not too sure if the story's fantastical element is enough to justify that. Now, my flaws with the film are pretty much the same issues I had with Forrest Gump. Lal, for the most part, is a passive protagonist. Rarely does he take active decisions that allow us to learn more about him. In the moments that he does, like attacking anyone who disrespects Rupa and saving the soldiers, his character shines as we learn more about Lal and see his determination through his choices. But he's usually being told to do things and go to places because he isn't really someone who has major goals in life and whose purpose keeps changing. When Lal starts the Rupa brand, his character is given more reason to care, for he is doing this because he had made a promise to Bala before he died. This decision of his not only progresses the plot forward, but also re-establishes him as someone who cares deeply about his friend, despite me feeling that the characters Bala and Muhammad should have been a bit more developed. Another thing about Forrest Gump, which I expected to see in this film, is just how random it is. It has the most absurd sequence of events play out in the most random order, but I guess it kind of worked for me better in Laal Singh, not only because I expected it, but also because the film's tone aims to achieve this slightly heightened magical realism to it. But the rapid momentum at which the important characters died felt way too random and did not make me feel as strongly as I should have felt. The sound design is fantastic, capturing every minute sound to add to the experience, except there is an oddly comical slap sound when Lal is slapping the people who misbehaved with Rupa. When Lal is beating them, the sound is fantastic. I really felt the impact of his punches, but the slap sounded weird in a way that took me out of the film. But other than that, Laal Singh Chaddha is a film that is beautiful, honest, and made with so much love and sincerity that it breaks my heart to see it fail in the box office. I honestly thought that the film would do well through word of mouth and the trust the audience has in Amir Khan, but I am surprised to see that the hashtag boycott Laal Singh Chaddha actually worked, and people on Twitter have actually played a huge role in the film's financial downfall over false assumptions of Amir apparently being anti national. Even the film's disclaimer was extremely lengthy to make sure that no one got offended, and it's disheartening to see artists having to repeatedly remind the audience that what they're watching is a piece of fiction. Bollywood, so to speak, is getting a lot of flack recently for not producing as many good movies, and it's really showing the frequency of audiences going to theaters. And I would like to believe that Laal Singh Chaddha is one of the few good Hindi movies to have come out this year. I really hope Amir and team don't lose hope, as I think they've made a solid film. I watched it with my sister and she welled up in many scenes. The film as a piece of art is splendid, and I really wish that it gets more love it deserves in the future, possibly if and when it releases on an OTT platform where most people understandably prefer to watch movies these days. But yeah, that's what I thought of the new Hindi movie Laal Singh Chaddha. Do comment below your thoughts on the film, your thoughts on this whole boycott bullshit, or just anything that you would like to share with me. Thank you so much for watching this video, and have a wonderful day. See you in the next video.